Early morning in the town of Jefferson, gentle sunlight streamed through the window of a small diner. Marcus Reed, a 38-year-old man with a weathered appearance, stepped into the diner with tired feet, but eyes still full of determination. Marcus was not just a mere homeless man. He was a veteran who had once fought for his country, but now life had led him to shadows no one expected. He sat down in a corner of the diner, ordered a strong black coffee, and quietly observed everything around him. Marcus's life was a stormy journey. After years of military service, he returned carrying heavy scars of war, not just on his body, but deeper wounds in his soul that few in society understood. Losing his home and wandering familiar streets forced him to learn to survive each day with extraordinary resilience and patience. That morning, the small diner was not only a place for Marcus to find a moment of peace, but also the stage for a story no one would anticipate, a story of injustice, discrimination, and abuse of power that Marcus was about to face. However, the story did not end there. It was a vivid slice of society where people like Marcus, veterans who had sacrificed, had to confront indifference, even discrimination within their own community. For many years, people had ignored stories like Marcus's, but today, in this small town of Jefferson, his voice would echo and bring change. And before we begin to delve deeper into Marcus's journey, tell us where you are listening to this story from and what time it is now, because we want to see how far this story reaches into hearts everywhere. Wisdom. Marcus was not just a man, he was a symbol of resilience in unspoken trials. In this story, we will explore not only the injustices he endured, but also valuable lessons about patience, empathy, and human strength when faced with adversity. Let's step into Marcus's world to understand more deeply the hidden corners of society that we sometimes prefer not to see. Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons, two names not just ordinary police officers in Jefferson, but representatives of a deeply fractured system. Ryan, 36 years old, grew up in a poor neighborhood of the city where prejudices against Black people were deeply embedded in everyday stories. Jake, just 28, freshly graduated from the police academy, carried enthusiasm but also heavy pressure to prove himself in a fiercely competitive environment. They patrolled the streets together, but beneath their shiny badges lay a complex story of power, prejudice, and lack of control. Ryan, with his years of experience, often showed an uncompromising attitude toward those he considered suspects. Jake, under Ryan's guidance, quickly adopted a tough approach, sometimes crossing the lines of law and ethics. One afternoon, when the two spotted Marcus sitting in the diner, the image of a homeless Black man triggered in them preconceived assumptions and biases. Ryan said coldly to Jake, "That's the kind of person we need to watch closely. You never know what they're hiding." Jake nodded, his eyes lighting up with the excitement of a rookie eager to prove himself. They had no idea that such attitudes would create a never-ending spiral where discrimination and abuse of power silently took root and grew. Ryan was not the only one harboring these biases. His story echoed with heartbreaking incidents recorded across America, from Derek Chauvin in the George Floyd case to Breonna Taylor, where excessive police actions cost lives and public trust. However, the story was not just about Ryan or Jake individually. A high-pressure work environment, a lack of strict oversight, and a police training system insufficiently addressing dangerous biases were the main reasons these behaviors persisted. Ryan once said in an internal meeting, "We're taught to handle situations quickly, not to be friends with everyone." Jake confided to a close colleague, "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the right thing. But the pressure from superiors and teammates makes it impossible to act differently." These confessions revealed a cold truth: pressure, and the system not only nurtured, but also protected wrongful behaviors. This was not just Jefferson's problem, but a widespread issue in many police forces across the United States. Inadequate training and internal supervision had become a vicious cycle, allowing officers like Ryan and Jake to act as they wished without timely checks or punishment. The lesson from this story was clear and cannot be ignored. Police training and oversight must be prioritized as a matter of survival. They are not only law enforcers, but protectors of the rights and safety of all citizens, regardless of race or circumstance. We cannot accept a system where abuse of power is allowed to exist, nor ignore the need for training so that law enforcement officers develop sensitivity, respect, and fairness toward everyone. The story of Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons is a profound warning for all of us that change must start from within, from each individual, from every agency, so that no more Marcus Reeds have to face injustice simply because of their skin color or life situation. And that is why, as we continue to follow Marcus's story, we cannot help but reflect on the role of each individual in society, how everyone, regardless of their position, can contribute to eliminating injustice and building a fairer world. Let's move on to the next part of the story where the truth will gradually be revealed and Marcus's choices will change his life forever. Marcus was sitting in an old car, the afternoon sunlight filtering through the leaves, casting shadows on the windshield, creating a seemingly peaceful space. But everything changed when the flashing police lights appeared behind him, accompanied by a blaring siren, like an unexpected sentence for him. Police officers Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons, with cold eyes and serious attitudes, ordered Marcus to pull over. "Where's your paperwork?" Ryan said, his tone full of pressure and hardly friendly. Jake stood beside him, hands in his pockets, watching every move Marcus made, as if searching for reasons to accuse. Marcus knew well that this moment was not just a routine check. It was a life-and-death struggle against deep-seated prejudices and injustice. Marcus tried to stay calm, his voice gentle but firm. "I'm cooperating. Here's my driver's license and vehicle registration." But that answer did not satisfy Ryan. With a suspicious look, Ryan took the documents and said, "We may need to check further." The atmosphere grew heavier as Jake stepped forward, bending to look Marcus up and down, his eyes revealing undisguised contempt. "You know someone like you shouldn't be here right now," Jake said, making Marcus's heart tighten. When Marcus asked why he was being scrutinized so closely, Ryan responded with forceful and somewhat threatening words. "This is our job. If you don't cooperate, the consequences won't stop here." Those words were both a warning and an excuse for them to begin checks and exert power beyond limits. The situation escalated when Marcus, a former veteran, recognized clear danger signs in the actions of the two officers. He did not react impulsively, but remained silent and compliant, though inside he was full of anxiety and unease. "Be careful, Marcus. This isn't the first time I've had to deal with people like you," Ryan said. Then suddenly, with a rough move, pulled Marcus's arm out of the car. The strong shove made Marcus lose balance, and shouts from people inside the nearby diner began to ring out. Jake also rushed in, not to support, but to increase the pressure, turning the situation chaotic. Marcus felt every second passing like a survival battle, not only with those in uniform, but also with the heavy prejudice weighing on him. The incident didn't stop at shouting. Marcus was forcibly dragged out of the car, handcuffed, and pushed into the station. The humiliation and assault happened in front of bystanders, leaving many shocked and outraged. That moment recalled painful stories like Sandra Bland, a black woman brutally arrested by police who later died in jail, or George Floyd, who lost his life due to police brutality. All were clear examples of how power can turn into violence when unchecked. Marcus, despite his experience facing adversity, could not avoid deep emotional trauma. He later recounted the feeling of being judged just because of my skin color, treated like a criminal when I did nothing wrong. "That's a pain I never want anyone to go through." Analyzing common mistakes victims make in similar situations, many people react with panic or resistance when arrested, unintentionally escalating tension and putting themselves at a disadvantage. Marcus, with his calmness and clear awareness of his rights, is a prime example of maintaining composure in adversity. The lesson from this story is the necessity of recognizing danger signs when interacting with law enforcement. Staying calm, understanding one's rights, and trying to note all developments around can help protect oneself. However, Marcus's story is also a profound reminder that the legal system and police forces need strong reforms to prevent abuse of power, racial discrimination, and unnecessary violence. Because every person, regardless of background or circumstance, deserves to be treated fairly and with respect. Imagine a society where everyone is protected by the law, without fear because of their skin color or situation. That is the society Marcus and many others are fighting to build. And now let us continue to follow Marcus's journey, where a single phone call changed the lives and careers of those in uniform. Linda is a simple woman, 28 years old, working as a waitress at the small diner on the corner where Marcus stopped on that fateful day. Linda was not just a server, but a silent witness, holding on to the light amid the darkness of unfolding injustice. As the shouting and yelling began outside the window, Linda stood silently watching. She saw Marcus, a seasoned, strong man, being brutally handled by two police officers. Every shove, every harsh word felt like a knife cutting into her heart, making it impossible for her to ignore. In a moment, courage surged within her. Linda gently but firmly took her phone out of her blouse pocket, opened the camera, and began recording the entire incident. She knew she was doing the right thing, that the true picture needed to be exposed to the light. "You shouldn't be doing this," Linda whispered, but her voice was loud enough to resonate in the tense space. A colleague asked her, "What are you doing?" "This could be dangerous," Linda smiled softly. "I can't just stand by and do nothing. They need to know the truth." Linda's act of recording was not only brave, but also the beginning of a chain of events that would change Marcus's life in the local police system. She never expected such a small action could become crucial evidence in the fight for justice. The role of witnesses in situations like this is more important than ever. Linda represented millions of silent observers choosing to stand with justice rather than retreating out of fear. She courageously spoke out in her own way, with images with undeniable truth. Analyzing community intervention in police violence cases shows that when communities stop being passive, they can create unimaginable power. Like the Black Lives Matter movement that ignited awareness about justice and human rights worldwide, small actions by individuals like Linda contribute to significant change. Linda wasn't a hero in uniform, but she was a hero in the eyes of the community, the one who brought hope to those oppressed, those forced into silence. The lesson here is that each of us can be a hero in our own way by courageously standing up and speaking the truth, even through the smallest actions. Imagine if it weren't for Linda, Marcus's story might have been hidden and the truth suffocated. She lit the flame of justice, showing everyone that the light at the end of the tunnel still exists no matter how thick the darkness. And now let us move forward to the next developments in the story, where the power of truth and the courage of the silent begin to shake the old system where power is no longer infinite or untouchable. Linda stood at the small diner's cashier counter, her hands trembling as she flipped through Marcus's phone number. A mix of nervousness and hope welled up inside her. She knew this call could be the biggest turning point in this heartbreaking story. She pressed the call button, heard the ringing in her ear, then a soft voice on the other end. "Marcus here, who's calling?" "Marcus, it's Linda," she said softly but firmly. "You're in big trouble. I just recorded everything that happened outside. I know someone who can help you, Colonel Harold Jenkins. He's an old friend of yours with great influence in the military and government. I think we need his help right now." Marcus's voice dropped slightly, mixed with doubt and hope. "Harold Jenkins. I haven't contacted him for a long time, but if Linda says so, maybe he can help." Linda sensed deep loneliness in Marcus's voice, but also saw a flicker of hope. "You're not alone, Marcus. I'll call Colonel Jenkins and try to connect you two." Moments later, Linda dialed Colonel Jenkins. His voice was warm and serious as he listened to Linda's story and immediately promised to act. "Linda, thank you for letting me know. Marcus is a good friend and we won't let him face this alone." A few hours later, Marcus received a call from Colonel Jenkins. "Marcus, I know what you're going through," his voice steady but determined. "I will use all my influence to help you so this won't be overlooked." Marcus couldn't hide his emotion. "Colonel Jenkins, thank you. I thought I was abandoned, but now I know I'm not alone." They talked more, sharing old stories and memories from their military days when they fought side by side. That call was not only help from a powerful friend, but also a light shining hope and spiritual strength on Marcus during his darkest time. Their story is a vivid testament to the power of relationships and social support in dark moments. When doors seem to slam shut, a timely call can open a new path, a path to justice and hope. We often think change comes only from those at the top, but in reality, it is the connection between ordinary people that creates real power. Linda was not just the recorder of truth. She was the bridge linking Marcus to a powerful ally, Colonel Jenkins. That call marked an important turning point, shifting the whole situation, preventing the abusers from continuing their tricks in the dark. It also reminded us that in the hardest moments, no one should stand alone. The story of Marcus, Linda, and Colonel Jenkins is far from over, full of challenges and emotions. But every call, every action can change fate and reshape the story toward greater justice. Now let me take you into the next part, where true power is tested and justice begins to reclaim its voice. Marcus sat quietly at the old wooden table in a small room, the dim light casting shadows on his deeply lined face. The call from Colonel Harold Jenkins still echoed in his mind like a somber but vibrant melody. Harold, the old friend Marcus hadn't seen for years, was now not only a powerful ally, but also a companion sharing unforgettable memories of the past. Marcus remembered the first time we were sent to the battlefield. Harold began with a warm but sorrowful voice. The scorching heat on our faces, the constant sound of gunfire, and those moments when we thought there would be no tomorrow. Marcus smiled softly, a smile carrying painful memories. I remember Harold, the sleepless nights, screams and dreams, and friends who never came back. Every time I wondered if I had the strength to carry on. Harold nodded, his eyes shining with empathy. That's PTSD, Marcus. Invisible wounds that are deeper and more lasting than physical injuries. Many think that when you leave the battlefield, it's over. But in reality, the battle continues inside the soul. Marcus sighed. I tried to hide it, tried not to let it affect my current life. But every time I encounter the police, every time I'm treated unfairly, those memories flood back, making me lose control. Harold leaned forward, his voice becoming more serious. That's why we need each other, Marcus. We need understanding and empathy from the community, from society, not only to heal personal wounds, but to fight against the prejudices and discrimination veterans like us face. Marcus looked deeply into Harold's eyes, feeling the strength from his old friend. Sometimes I thought society had forgotten me, abandoned me. But now, hearing you speak, I know I'm not alone. Their conversation was not just a recollection of harsh days on the battlefield, but a profound reminder of the difficulties millions of veterans worldwide endure. Psychological wounds, pressure to return to normal life, and lack of social support all create a complex and challenging picture. Harold shared in many places, veterans face not only their past, but also stigma from those they once protected. They are seen as burdens, ostracized, or even looked down upon. Marcus agreed, and that's why we must speak up, help each other, and make the world better. Understand the real life of veterans. They recall difficult days, deadly battles, and rare peaceful moments when they felt the warmth of camaraderie. We've been through so much, Marcus, Harold said. But what we're doing now, fighting for justice, for truth, that's the real battlefield. Marcus nodded firmly, his eyes resolute. I'm not just fighting for myself anymore. I'm fighting for all those abandoned, discriminated against, and for my fellow soldiers struggling in the dark. The story of Marcus and Harold is a strong reminder that beneath the uniform, beyond the glory of battle, are people with wounds not easily healed. And to heal those wounds, society needs more understanding, empathy, and real action. They are not alone. Their story is also the story of millions of other veterans fighting daily with the ghosts of the past and injustice in the present. Let us listen, understand, and together create a world where no one is left behind. The next part will lead you into Marcus's greatest challenge, when strength and resilience reach their peak and justice begins to awaken. In a small town called Jefferson, where people still trust in the safety and fairness of the police force, a dark veil gradually lifted, revealing the terrifying truth about the system they once respected. The initial investigation into Marcus's case did not stop at an individual or isolated incident, but led to a journey exposing deep corruption and cover-ups within the Jefferson Police Department. The head of the investigation, Detective Laura Martinez, a resilient woman with a heart for justice, uncovered much evidence indicating that many police officers in this department abuse their power for personal gain. Fake reports overlooking misconduct and opaque ties with local criminal organizations were revealed step by step. Laura didn't expect things to be this serious, a colleague exclaimed during a closed-door meeting. This is not just a single case. This is an extensive network of abuse of power and corruption. Laura responded with determined eyes. We can't let this continue. Justice is not just about resolving Marcus's case. It's time to clean up the whole system so that the people of Jefferson are no longer deceived. The story of corruption in the Jefferson Police Department began to resonate, reminding many of infamous scandals across the United States, such as the cases of Amadou Diallo or Eric Garner, victims of police violence and lack of transparency in investigations. These cases once shook public opinion, awakening society to blind spots within the security and justice system. Laura bluntly stated, "The painful truth is that internal investigations are often compromised by a lack of independence and transparency. When those within the police department investigate themselves, the results can never be objective." A public meeting was held where Laura presented her findings before the city council. "We cannot continue to allow a system that protects itself and covers up wrongdoing instead of addressing it," she said persuasively. "We need an independent, transparent oversight body with the authority to ensure fairness for everyone." Residents of Jefferson gradually realized that to create change, they needed not only to seek justice for Marcus, but also demand transparency and strict oversight across the entire police system. Their voices rose, forming a wave calling for strong reform. A local resident shared in an interview, "We've always wanted to trust the police. But now after what happened, we need to know that someone is watching them to prevent things like Marcus's case from happening again." The event in Jefferson was not isolated. Numerous similar scandals have rocked the United States, all showing that lack of transparency and rigorous oversight in police forces is the root cause of tragic outcomes. Activists, politicians, and citizens alike united in calling for deep reform. Laura concluded, "Only when we have an independent and transparent oversight system can we hope for real justice to be served. This is not just the duty of an individual or an organization. It is the collective responsibility of society." The story of Marcus Linda and their fight against the Jefferson police system became a symbol for a movement demanding justice and transparency, a powerful reminder that no one is above the law, and only with public oversight can power be kept in check. The next part will lead you into a dramatic courtroom trial where the truth is unveiled and justice is gradually restored, shaking not only the trust of Jefferson's people, but that of the entire nation. In a world increasingly connected by social media and digital communication, Marcus's story no longer remained a local incident, but quickly spread across news outlets and social platforms, attracting nationwide attention. A video capturing the tense scene at the Jefferson Diner, where Marcus was unjustly treated by officers Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons, was shared millions of times within hours. Linda, who intervened and recorded the entire incident, became a widely recognized figure. She recalled the moment she first posted the video online. "I just wanted the truth to be known. I didn't expect it to spread so fast. I felt the change from initial silence. Now people are starting to speak the truth." Major news outlets began reporting, documentaries and discussion programs aired continuously. Questions about fairness, human rights, and police responsibility were raised everywhere. The media not only helped raise public awareness, but also pressured authorities to act transparently and seriously. Famous journalist Emma Collins, host of a social issues program, said in an interview, "Marcus's case is like a verdict against the system we once trusted. It shows the need to enhance accountability and transparency in policing. The media acts as a fair watchdog, illuminating the truth and amplifying the voices of the oppressed." Marcus's story was also compared to social movements that have changed America over the past decade. Black Lives Matter, a movement advocating for Black rights and against police violence, sparked similarly powerful waves of protest. Likewise, Me Too, exposing harassment and abuse in many fields, created shifts in social awareness. A social activist involved in these movements said, "The power of social media is that it helps forgotten or hidden stories suddenly come to light. When the public knows the truth, the pressure to change becomes irresistible." However, alongside positive reactions, the media also brought challenges. Marcus and Linda faced harsh scrutiny, negative comments, and even threats from dissenters. Yet they remained steadfast in their goal to bring justice and reform the system. In a conversation with Marcus, Linda encouraged him, "Don't let negativity shake us. Each of us is a voice for millions who haven't had a chance to speak." Marcus nodded, "I'm not just fighting for myself. I'm fighting for all those abandoned whose voices have been ignored." Marcus's story, supported by media and community, became a powerful inspiration for a new generation daring to stand against injustice and demand transparency in power institutions. Thanks to the strong spread of media coverage, pressure forced Jefferson authorities to expand investigations, increase information, transparency, and implement stricter measures against misconduct within the police force. The message this story sends is also a reminder that in the digital age, media is not just a tool for entertainment or information, but a powerful weapon for social justice, helping the oppressed gain voice and necessary support. Let us ask ourselves, how can we harness the power of the media positively to protect justice? And you, what will you do to become part of the change? The next chapter will lead you into the fierce legal battle and crucial turning points in the fight for justice for Marcus. The trial of officers Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons opened in a tense courtroom in Jefferson. Bright lights shone on the stern faces of the judges, while the courtroom was packed with local residents, media, and supporters of Marcus filling every seat. The atmosphere was heavy, whispers of concern weaving through the room, yet they could not drown out the collective hope for justice. Marcus sat in the front row, eyes somber but shining with resilience. He thought, today is the day all the truth will be revealed. This is not just my fight, it is the struggle of millions seeking justice. Marcus's family was present too, holding hands tightly, having endured all the hardships together on this long journey. The prosecutor began presenting undeniable evidence, the video secretly recorded by Linda, the diner employee, testimonies from eyewitnesses at the scene, and investigative reports showing that Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons not only abused their power, but also concealed wrongdoing. Every detail was unveiled, every shadow exposed under the light of the law, sending chills through the courtroom. Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons grossly violated Marcus's civil rights, the prosecutor emphasized sharply. Their actions were not only an abuse of power, but an insult to the human dignity our society protects. On the defense side, lawyers tried to protect their clients, but faced with the mountain of concrete evidence, they struggled to make a case. In moments of silence, the eyes of Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons revealed anxiety, even fear of justice. The local community closely followed every development, breathing a sigh of relief as justice slowly emerged. A middle-aged woman, Mrs. Rosa, wept during the prolonged trial. "We have waited too long for a truth like this. This is not just Marcus's story, but the story of all oppressed people. Finally, justice is being served." Marcus stood briefly, looking directly at the judges, hope filling his heart. "I don't want revenge. I only want justice to be protected, so no one else has to endure the same." The trial lasted several days with numerous testimonies and pieces of evidence presented, but the brightest highlight was the court's determination to ensure everyone is equal before the law. Finally, after tense deliberations, the judge sentenced Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons to severe penalties, including imprisonment and compensation to Marcus. Marcus's family erupted in joy and relief. One of Marcus's brothers said, "At last, truth and justice have been rewarded. This is a victory not just for Marcus, but for the entire community." This story is not only proof that justice, though delayed, holds great value, but also stresses that in any system, human rights and dignity must be paramount. Marcus's persistent fight became a beacon for those facing injustice, proving that no matter how difficult the journey, justice can prevail. Through the trial, many began to better understand the importance of a fair and transparent legal system. Voices supporting justice were no longer ignored, but heard, laying the foundation for positive changes in the community. Remember, each of us can be a Marcus, a warrior for fairness and truth. No matter how long and hard the journey, justice is worth the sacrifice and fight. The next chapter will take you into Marcus's transformation from a victim to an inspiration for a social movement. Keep following to explore this meaningful journey. The trial ended. The sentences for Ryan Brooks and Jake Simmons were not only legal punishments, but also the beginning of a long and challenging road ahead. Both officers, after conviction, had to undergo rigorous retraining, but deeper than that was the immeasurable loss of reputation, community trust, and especially the emotional scars that may never heal in their minds. Meanwhile, Marcus, the brave man who stood up against injustice, also began a challenging journey of recovery. Not only physical wounds, but the mental scars caused by violence and racial discrimination constantly simmered in his soul. Marcus's story touched the hearts of the Jefferson community, awakening people to care more about the fate of homeless veterans like Marcus, who had long been forgotten by society. One quiet afternoon in a small coffee shop, Marcus sat opposite Linda, the diner employee who had recorded that fateful event. "Linda, if it weren't for you, my story might have been buried forever," Marcus confessed in a low voice. "But now I want to do more, not just for myself, but for all people like me." Linda nodded, her eyes shining with faith. You're not alone, Marcus. This community will walk with you. We need to speak out so no one else has to suffer as you did. Marcus's recovery journey was far from easy. He faced sleepless nights, nightmares from the past, and inner doubts. But with the support of family, friends, and social organizations, Marcus gradually found the light of hope again. He began participating in advocacy activities for homeless veterans, sharing his story to spark empathy and action from the community. One day during a meeting with a veterans support group, Marcus shared, "I don't want anyone to suffer what I went through. Recovery is not just my story, it's our responsibility, the community's responsibility." Not only Marcus, but many victims of police abuse were also beginning to find their voice and necessary support. Marcus's story became an inspiration for thousands, promoting psychological and legal aid programs for those harmed by the system. However, to truly heal deep wounds, society needs more than promises or harsh sentences. A fundamental change is needed in how we view and support those who are hurt. Marcus once said, "We must change not just by laws, but through compassion and understanding." The lessons from this story remind us of the value of empathy and community action. Recovery is not an individual journey, but a collective responsibility from governments and social organizations to everyday citizens. As Marcus and the Jefferson community joined hands to build support programs, their small steps created a large wave spreading hope and change. From stories like theirs, the world began to realize fairness and healing are not distant goals but achievable when we unite. The next chapter will guide you through Marcus's transformation from a victim to a resilient social justice advocate, inspiring an entire generation. Continue following to explore this meaningful journey. In the final days of this journey, as Marcus's story and the community around him were closing, a profound message was sent to all of us about forgiveness, unity, and the collective strength that can build a fairer future for everyone. Sitting by a peaceful lake, Marcus gazed at the calm water, his voice gentle but full of meaning. We cannot change the past, but we can choose how to move forward. Forgiveness is not forgetting, but freeing ourselves from the burden of hatred. And more importantly, unity will be the greatest strength to help us build a just society. Linda, the diner employee who intervened in the incident, nodded in agreement. Each of us has a role in this fight. You may not directly stand to defend justice, but every small act, a word, a glance, an act of kindness creates change. Those words echoed as a call to every listener's heart, yet are reminding us that change never comes hastily. It begins with small steps, simple but meaningful actions. And sometimes silence is not weakness, but latent strength waiting for the moment to ignite. Marcus added, eyes full of passion. We need to spread empathy and understanding in the community. When each person stands up, even with a small act, that is the flame lighting the path to justice. Marcus's story and those around him inspired thousands, even millions across the country. They proved that fighting for truth is necessary, and that connection and compassion can become a force to change the world. And now I want you, the one listening to this story, to ask yourself, who will you be in this great story? Will you choose silence or speak out? Will you hold on to empathy or turn away from justice? Change begins with you right now. Before concluding, I want to remind you to subscribe so you don't miss true inspiring stories that change lives. Because here, every story is a voice and every voice is power. And to close, remember, in a world full of injustice, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is remain silent to listen. And from that, create a voice that cannot be silenced. Thank you for joining us. See you in the next stories where truth, justice, and hope are always kept alive.